"Sir, step aside." The gate agent's voice sliced through the quiet shuffle of the TSA pre-check line loud enough for heads to turn, sharp enough to wound. Malik Jordan, off-duty Homeland Security officer, paused mid-step. His hand held out his ID with practiced ease. "I'm DHS, traveling back from conference duty," he said calmly, offering his badge again. The agent barely glanced. "This doesn't look right." Two white men behind Malik were waved through with half smiles. Their IDs weren't even questioned. Malik's gaze flicked from the agent to the supervisor now striding over. His heart beat steady. Not fast. Not yet. But his jaw clenched. "I'm telling you, this ID is federal. You're holding me because I'm black in a blazer." The supervisor didn't flinch. "Security protocol, sir." Malik could feel the weight of passing eyes measuring him, judging him. He didn't raise his voice, didn't move, just stood, unyielding, and still, somehow, already cornered. The airline manager examined the ID as though it were counterfeit. "Currency. Huh. Homeland Security," he muttered, then looked Malik up and down. "You don't look like one." Malik tilted his head slightly. "What's that supposed to mean?" A brief pause. "Nothing. Just unexpected." Every word was laced with disbelief. Not loud, not aggressive, but loaded. Beneath the professionalism was the same old disbelief. Someone like you doesn't belong here. "You're surprisingly articulate," the manager added. Malik didn't respond. He'd heard that phrase before. At briefings, in boardrooms, from people who didn't think they were being offensive. This wasn't about documents. It was about appearance. And appearances, especially for a black man in authority, could be used against you. Two more security officers appeared, flanking him, like he was a flight risk. "Please come with us," one said. Hands on belts, eyes cold. "For what?" Malik asked, keeping his voice even. No answer. Passengers slowed as they passed. Phones lifted. A whisper of recording began to ripple. A woman muttered, "Why him?" A man said nothing but started, arms crossed. Malik's briefcase was taken from his hand. "Is this really happening?" He said aloud, more to himself than anyone else. "Yes, sir." "Follow us," the agent replied. There was no resistance. Malik walked deliberately, shoulders square, but every step felt like a verdict. Was no longer a traveler, not even a citizen. He was a problem. In the small screening room just past the terminal, Malik faced 5 airline officials. One held his ID like it was evidence in a crime scene. "This doesn't match your story," the lead investigator said. Malik blinked. "My story? You say you're Homeland Security, but we've seen fake IDs before. Yours doesn't scan in our system." "That's because you don't have access to federal systems," Malik replied tightly. "Try contacting DHS verification. Use the number on the back." The response was a scoff. "How convenient." Another agent stepped forward. "Why would a real federal officer fly a commercial in jeans?" "Because I'm not on duty." Number. One cared. The room had already been decided. "You're impersonating a federal agent." Someone muttered. It wasn't just an accusation. It was a stripping of identity. Malik opened his mouth, then closed it. They weren't interested in the truth. Only control. Back outside, word had spread. People were gathering. Not close, but enough. Watching. Whispering. "He said he's a federal officer," a woman murmured. A boy, maybe 8 years old, tugged his mom's sleeve. "Why are they treating him like that?" His mother didn't answer. Another man filmed discreetly. Another looked away completely. Some recorded out of outrage. Others out of morbid curiosity. And many too many stayed silent. Malik caught the child's eyes. That gaze, the innocence behind it, was worse than the adult's suspicion. "This isn't happening." Malik muttered as the manager returned with a printed notice. Your boarding privileges have been revoked. Permanently. You're now on our no-fly list. No explanation, no appeal. Malik asked, We don't play games with national security, the manager said, loudly enough for the crowd to hear. You're not flying today. Malik's badge was handed back like trash. A uniformed officer took him by the elbow. You can walk out on your own, or we can escort you. He said, He chose to walk. Each step away from the gate felt like exile, as Malik passed the last checkpoint. A younger security guard leaned in and whispered, Sorry, man. This wasn't just us. Orders from the top. Malik didn't reply. That quiet admission confirmed it. This wasn't a misunderstanding, It was targeted. It was planned, and it ran. Deeper than a bad manager. Malik exited the terminal, not looking back, no fury. No breakdown. Just stillness. A steady breath. A tightened jaw. They think I won't fight back, he thought. They were wrong. The story wasn't ending. It was about to begin. Daddy, don't let go. 8-year-old Malik's hand clung to his father's as flashing lights lit up the night. Protesters chanted for justice. His dad had done nothing, just raised a sign, stood firm, peaceful. But the officers didn't care. Step back, son. One barked as Malik's father was shoved to the pavement, cuffed in front of the crowd. Malik screamed. No one listened. That moment carved something permanent into his memory. Fear, confusion, and a need to understand power. As they drove off with his father, Malik's knuckles stayed white against the chain-link fence. He never forgot how fast respect could vanish, or how silence could become survival. They didn't expect much from Malik in school. Too quiet, too serious, too ... Out of place. Smart for someone like you, a counselor once said with a tight smile. He didn't answer. He just studied harder. While his friends dodged labels, Malik broke them. Late nights. Empty lunch trays. Worn library books. He watched how teachers overlooked him, how others were pushed forward while he had to drag himself up every grade. Still, he graduated top of his class. Federal scholarship in hand. They never saw him coming. And maybe that's why he kept coming harder. Boot camp was brutal, but familiar. Doubt came in different uniforms. Think you'll last, Jordan? Someone had grinned. He didn't reply. Just past every mark, quietly in the field, he made his name not by barking orders, but by reading people, de-escalating chaos, and always finishing the job. Behind closed doors, superiors praised his instincts. In public, they introduced him. Twice just to prove he was who he said he was. He carried the weight of dual identities. Black man. Federal badge. Even while protecting airports and investigating threats, he knew one wrong look could make him a suspect. That's why he played every move like it mattered. Because it did. There was a week he trained TS, a staff at Lax. The next, he was pulled aside at that same airport. Random check. He almost laughed. The irony wasn't lost on him. The man tasked with protecting the skies often found himself questioned at the gate. Bias didn't shout. It whispered through extra ID scans, sideways glances, unspoken suspicion. He wore the badge, but the world still saw the skin first. And no clearance could override that. You don't look like a federal officer. You're very well spoken. Malik heard it all. Always smiled, nodded, moved on, because reacting only gave them something to point at. But the day they banned him from flying, treating him like a threat, ignoring his credentials, stripping him of dignity, something changed. This wasn't misjudgment. This was systemic. He'd swallowed years of coded remarks and quiet hostility. But this time, the silence cracked. And behind it was something sharper than anger. Intent. Malik stepped up to the check-in counter, flashing his Homeland Security ID with practiced ease. But the glance the airline staff shot him wasn't routine. It lingered. A quiet exchange between the gate agent and her colleague, whispered words, just out of earshot. He caught the subtle shift. Their eyes darted away too quickly. The polite smiles didn't quite reach their faces. Here we go again, Malik thought, a familiar heaviness settling in his chest. This wasn't the first time his presence caused unease, but today it felt sharper, colder, like they were scrutinizing more than just his credentials. He stayed composed, knowing this silent evaluation was just the opening act. He was no stranger to these invisible judgments, but something told him this moment was about to intensify. The boarding agent swiped Malik's ID, then paused, fingers hovering over the phone. A quick call to a supervisor followed, a quiet buzz that seemed to echo louder than it should. Malik's gaze flicked sideways, noticing a white woman with a nearly identical badge. She approached, smiled, and was waved through effortlessly. Looks good. Have a great flight. The agent called out to her, voice light and warm. Malik's turn came again, but instead of ease, there was hesitation. Just a second, sir. The agent murmured, eyes flickering to a supervisor nearby. The difference was stark, almost brutal. This wasn't about procedure anymore. It was about who was being trusted and who was being questioned. The pattern was undeniable. You sure this isn't fake? A voice muttered low enough to seem like an aside, but loud enough for Malik to catch every syllable. He clenched his jaw, but kept his tone steady. This is official DHS identification. The agent barely looked up, fingers tracing the edges of his badge, as if searching for flaws. Malik's mind raced beneath the calm exterior. They weren't worried about a genuine threat. No, this was about doubting his legitimacy before he even had a chance. He knew the game well, doubt disguised as caution, suspicion wrapped in whispers. They fear that I belong here, he thought. Not because I'm dangerous, but because I'm real. He answered no further questions, choosing silence as his shield against the invisible weight pressing down. Moving beyond the check-in counter, Malik sensed the weight of eyes tracking him. An airline marshal, blending into the terminal crowd, maintained a calculated distance, but never lost sight. His trained instincts flared. This wasn't casual oversight. It was surveillance, cold and deliberate. The hustle of the airport faded into a blur as the gaze followed every step Malik took. He wasn't merely being processed. He was being hunted under the guise of security. The tension tightened, making each breath heavier than the last. Pulling out his phone, Malik opened the DHS clearance email, his official confirmation. Despite the digital proof in his hand, he knew credentials wouldn't shield him today. Fingers tapping quietly, he texted a trusted colleague. Something's off. Might need backup later. His voice remained calm, but beneath the surface, a storm was gathering. He wasn't reacting with anger, yet, but with precise calculation. Every moment counted. The battle had only just begun. Step away from the gate, sir, the voice barked. Sharp and formal. Malik froze mid-step. The boarding pass clenched tightly in his hand. The sudden shift from polite nods to commanding orders caught everyone's attention. The line hushed instantly, eyes snapping toward the unfolding scene. He met the gaze of the uniformed staffer, trying to maintain composure despite the jarring change in tone. May I ask why? Malik inquired calmly, his voice steady but edged with tension. No questions, the agent replied curtly. You're being detained for security reasons. Passengers around them exchanged uneasy glances. The quiet airport hum gave way to a thick, tense silence, pregnant with suspicion. Malik's heart pounded not from fear, but from the weight of recognition that this wasn't a routine check. The escalation was deliberate, public, and brutal. He wasn't just a traveler anymore. He was a spectacle, and the world was watching. One staffer stepped forward, holding Malik's DHS badge like it was a forgery. Fake credentials? You think this is some kind of joke? She spat, voice rising with disbelief and accusation. Malik straightened, the sting of the insult sharp, but his voice unwavering. This is official Homeland Security identification. I'm authorized to be here. They ignored him, their suspicion morphing into outright hostility. Another agent leaned in, scanning the badge with exaggerated scrutiny. You expect us to believe this? It was like standing trial with no judge, no defense, and no chance for fairness. Malik's attempts to explain his role fell on deaf ears. I train TSA agents. I protect airports, he said, hoping logic might pierce the wall of bias. But the language hardened. You don't belong here. We don't take risks with national security. Malik's calm cracked for a moment, frustration bubbling beneath his controlled exterior. He wasn't a threat, they feared his legitimacy. The badge that symbolizes trust was twisted into a tool of suspicion. We don't play games with national security. The manager declared loudly, voice ringing through the terminal. A gasp rippled from the crowd, phones suddenly raised to capture the moment. The air thickened with a mix of shock and disbelief. A small voice pierced through. Mom, why is that man being yelled at? A child whispered. Malik stood silent, fury simmering. Beneath a calm exterior. His mouth was shut, but the tension radiated from his posture. The manager's words echoed, branding him a security threat in front of everyone. No defense was offered. No questions answered. The filming continued viral moments born from injustice. Moments that could never be erased. Malik's silence was louder than any argument. His dignity was challenged, but unbroken. With a cold click, the boarding pass was erased from the system. Sir, I want the federal liaison, Malik demanded, voice steady despite the humiliation. You've lost that privilege, came the curt reply. The message was clear. Erase him from the process, erase his presence. His ticket was canceled. His name was blacklisted. No chance to explain, no chance to appeal. It was more than just an inconvenience. It was erased. Systemic racism played out in real time, invisible hands wielding power to crush legitimacy. Malik's identity, his authority, was stripped away in front of strangers. The betrayal was surgical and deep, yet he held his ground, understanding this wasn't a personal failure, it was a structural assault. That's racial profiling. A man's voice rang out, sharp and defiant. Hope sparked briefly as the older. White passenger stepped forward, but it was quickly extinguished. Airport security moved swiftly, blocking the path. Mind your business, sir, an officer warned. Eyes in the crowd averted, discomfort thick as the air. The lone ally was silenced, swallowed by collective passivity. Malik remained isolated, no voices raised, no hands extended. Solitude settled heavily. An officer's voice dropped low, but cut like a blade. Should have stayed in line like the rest of us. Malik didn't respond. No words could lessen that sting. The remark was a cruel reminder. No badge, no rank could protect him here. It was a final dismissal of everything he stood for, a whispered sentence sealing the ordeal. He walked on, carrying the burden without breaking. Malik exited the terminal in silence, each step deliberate. The crowd parted without a word, their eyes avoiding his. His shoulders squared, posture unyielding, but his gaze blazed with silent fury. There was no turning back now. Next time, he vowed, he wouldn't walk these halls alone, or without the truth as his weapon. The fight was far from over. Malik's fingers moved deliberately, the soft tapping of keys breaking the silence in his dimly lit room. No dramatic soundtrack, no fanfare, just the steady rhythm of a man taking control. He opened surveillance footage, paused on the moment. Airline staff targeted him. Detailed incident notes filled the screen. His voice was calm, authoritative, typed into the official report, racial profiling. Retaliatory discrimination. Institutional bias. This wasn't about anger or revenge. It was precision. Strategy. Each sentence carved a case that demanded justice, not just for him, but for countless others facing similar indignities. This is where we fight, Malik thought, eyes narrowing. On my terms, with facts, not fear. He hit submit and leaned back. The battle had officially begun. Days later, calls came in from DHS contacts, civil rights advocates digging deeper. A flood of complaints surfaced, black and brown travelers detailing similar humiliations. Dismissed and ignored for years. Internal emails leaked from the airline servers. Flag passengers who don't look like they belong in first class. Malik's suspicions transformed into undeniable evidence. This wasn't an isolated incident. It was a pattern. He pieced together timelines, matching stories and messages. This goes beyond one event, he told a colleague over the phone. It's institutional racism woven into their operations. The airline's veil was unraveling, thread by thread, under the weight of truth. The anonymous email arrived. Attached, grainy CCTV footage showing repeated racial targeting. Black travelers singled out, delayed, and humiliated. Alongside it, an internal memo read, maintain appearances. Discreetly flagged passengers with questionable profiles. Malik stared at the screen, breath caught tight in his chest. It wasn't just personal anymore. It was systemic, orchestrated. The email ended simply. I couldn't stay quiet anymore. A voice from inside the machine had broken ranks. This was the confirmation Malik needed. He replied briefly. Thank you. We'll make sure this gets the attention it deserves. The walls of silence had cracks, and justice was seeping through. Malik made a choice. He would not hide behind anonymity. He filed the complaint under his own name, letting his identity stand as a beacon against injustice. Within hours, social media exploded. Hashtag Flying While Black trended nationwide. Civil rights lawyers offered their support. Local news picked up the footage. Then national outlets followed. Headlines screamed, Homeland Security officer banned for looking suspicious. The viral video showed Malik's calm, professional demeanor amid chaos, a stark contrast to the airline's escalating panic. Viewers were outraged. Conversations ignited about racial profiling and discrimination in air travel. Malik's quiet strength spoke volumes. This wasn't just his fight anymore. It was a movement gaining momentum. The airline's CEO released a statement. We value diversity and inclusion. But the public wasn't buying it. Critics fired back. You value silence more than justice. Malik posted a single line on his social channels. Justice isn't a PR problem. It's a human problem. His words resonated. Interviews followed. Despite pressure, Malik's integrity remained unshaken. The company's attempts at damage control only fueled the fire. Supporters rallied around him, their voices growing louder, demanding real accountability. Federal agencies stepped in. DHS announced a civil rights investigation. The FAA joined, citing passenger safety concerns. A boycott campaign gained traction. Sponsors started pulling ads, unwilling to be associated with the scandal. Behind closed doors, the airline's board scrambled. Leaked memos revealed panic. We can't afford to be the next headline. Malik watched as the system he fought began to shift. Power was cracking. Change was no longer a distant hope. It was unfolding in real time. The supervisor who targeted Malik was suspended, then swiftly fired. Internal reports labeled the behavior a violation of protocol and public trust. Whispers circulated. He's the scapegoat. But this was more than a scapegoat. It was a signal. The tide was turning. Systems built on silence and prejudice were now exposed to light. A U.S. Congresswoman retweeted Malik's viral video, her words cutting through the noise. This isn't security. It's white supremacy disguised as policy. Her statement echoed on morning shows, demanding accountability and reform. Malik watched, eyes steady, no smile, his focus sharp. This was bigger than him now. It was a movement demanding justice, equality, and respect for every traveler, no matter their skin. The fight was far from over, but the spotlight was shining brighter than ever. The evidence is clear, the DHS spokesperson announced, voice steady but firm. Our investigation confirms systemic racial profiling within the airline security procedures. Headlines flashed across screens nationwide. Federal agencies confirm civil rights violations. The report was exhaustive data analysis. Leaked emails, repeated complaints from travelers of color, and first-hand eyewitness accounts. Malik's experience wasn't isolated. It was the breaking point in a long history of discrimination. The footage everyone had seen before was now backed by undeniable proof. The airline's attempts to deny responsibility dissolved under scrutiny. Every email, every surveillance clip, every whispered complaint had been documented and dissected. This was no longer speculation or rumor. It was a federal verdict. Systemic. Bias was laid bare in black and white. The nation watched as justice took shape, proving that one man's fight had exposed a deep-rooted problem. The airline's response was swift but insufficient. Multi-million-dollar fines landed hard, signaling serious financial consequences. Yet the mandated reforms cut even deeper. Government oversight took hold. Diversity hiring practices were overhauled, with a new emphasis on equity and inclusion. Mandatory cultural sensitivity training became a non-negotiable standard across a company. Behind closed doors, executives scrambled to rebuild trust. Malik's relentless pursuit had forced change, not merely punishment. This wasn't about appeasing public outrage. It was about restructuring a broken system. The airline learned that prejudice carries a price far beyond dollars, its legacy now tangled with accountability and reform. Facing cameras, Malik's expression was calm, almost humble. The interviewer asked, "How does it feel to become the face of justice?" Malik answered, "This isn't about me. It's about the man pulled aside after church, the woman doubted in her uniform, the boy watching it happen and believing it's normal." His words echoed beyond headlines, transforming him from a mere news story into a symbol of resilience. He didn't claim victory for himself, but for every silent victim of discrimination. In those moments, Malik's quiet strength spoke louder than any protest, inspiring countless others to stand against injustice. Breaking news crawled across screens. CEO steps down amid scandal fallout. In the same breath, Malik's phone rang. The voice on the other end was low but determined. "We want you to lead the change you helped start." From outcast to decision-maker, Malik's journey took a powerful turn. The promotion wasn't just a reward, it was an opportunity to shape policy from within. His story was no longer just about survival. It was about leadership. The man once targeted by systemic bias was now steering the fight against it. Airports nationwide displayed a new image, a calm, composed face that travelers couldn't ignore. Billboards read, "Dignity and security, because we all belong." Malik's photo greeted passengers with quiet authority. Even the staff who once questioned him now nodded in respect. His presence became a symbol, a reminder that security isn't just about safety, but about fairness and respect. Malik's face was no longer a target. It was a standard for what inclusive security should be. Walking through SIA once more, Malik felt the difference. No lingering stares, no second guesses. A small voice tugged at a mother's sleeve. "That's the guy who stood up for us." Malik smiled softly, not for praise, but for what this moment meant. The humiliation had vanished, replaced by pride and recognition. His legacy wasn't just in the reforms or headlines. It was in every quiet step forward toward justice. Have you ever been judged before you even had a chance to speak? Before you took a single step forward? Malik's story isn't unique. Too many face these moments in silence every day. This isn't just about one man's experience. It's a reflection of a shared struggle that demands to be heard. If you felt the sting of discrimination or racial profiling, share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters. And this space is for truth. If Malik's journey moved you, help us spread it further. Like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so more voices can rise and stories like this don't fade into the background. Every click fuels visibility, turning individual experiences into a collective movement. We're far from done, and your support is the momentum that keeps change alive. Because this isn't just fiction, it's a call to action. We tell these stories because too many remain unheard. Join us in standing up for justice by sharing this video with someone who needs to see it. Use the hashtags #StandWithMalik, #FlyingWhileBlack, and #JusticeInTheSkies to connect, empower, and remind the world that together we can rewrite the narrative.